Welcome back to Coaches Exploring the Untethered Soul. And this week we're looking at chapter 13, Far, Far Beyond. And usually I read like the first sentence or so, but I'll kind of jump ahead a bit to the first things I've highlighted. And the first is kind of a definition. It says, beyond is infinite in all directions. In truth, everything is infinite. It is you who takes that which goes on forever and talks about a mile from here. There are no limits. There's just the infinite universe. And I don't know. I call my company Unleash Your Potential, but I've always thought of potential as being unlimited. So this it really lines up well with this idea of infinite. And there's all kinds of metaphors and things that come to my mind when I think of infinite. Like one of the things I've attempted to do in my life is what Covey would call the abundance mentality. Like there's enough for everybody. In my coaching practice, I always kind of remind myself there's 8 billion people on this planet. Surely there could be like 1,000 that need my coaching. But there's infinite, there's something very hopeful about the idea of things being infinite, which is what strikes me right off the bat. And this statement too, in truth, everything is infinite. Like to me, that's, whatever 1, 2, 5 words is a very powerful statement that Singer is making here. In truth, everything is infinite. And I suppose what's coming to me right now is kind of, it's a double-edged sword. Is it, freedom, opportunity, joy, love is infinite, but our ability to bung it up is also infinite.
I love the sentence before that. In truth, everything is infinite. The sentence before that, things seems infinite because your perception hits mental boundaries.
Mm,
And what occurred to me, or how my mind heard that, was things seems infinite because your perception hits thought boundaries.
mm,
And because of our understanding of thought, it creates a lot more fluidity. Well, it did for me. Um, oh, all these walls that are thick and solid, thought boundaries. There's a bit more give now.
mm.
There's a bit more fluidity that opened up the experience.
Yeah, for me, as from this, things seem finite because your perception hits mental boundaries, and then the bit that Greg read out to me, there's something about that old what is it? One of the NLP presuppositions. There's no failure, only feedback.
Mm.
And the idea that effectively, if everything is indeed infinite, then it knocks the idea of failure on the head, because it's something about permanence and continuity and determination and resilience, and something that goes on, despite anything that could appear in life, let's say, as a failure or a setback or anything else like that. Because again, it's a thought created thing. But if we add the word infinite, then also the thoughts don't even exist in a certain sense. It is indeed beyond thought.
Mhm. I wonder what it would be like to live in that beyond.
I love how he describes how it is that we've kind of arrived at this place, you know, that our intellectual mind can't handle the infiniteness of the universe. So we build structures and things. And it reminds me of, you know, in coach training with Jamie about, you know, helping clients have insights that shift the structures that they've been living in. Like it talks to Sanka, what you were just talking about in terms of these mental boundaries, like all these structures that we innocently put into place to protect ourselves or to create a world that our mind or our psyche can handle, and this psyche's need to control how things unfold, how, you know, um, and so on, and how it all relates back to fear. I just found the whole thing very relatable and fascinating. Um,
And another way he talks about it, which I found very interesting, is he says, you work to fit the unknown into the known.
mm,
So, you know, when something happens, you take the parts that you know and try and make sense out of it so that it fits into what you already know.
Mm.
You know, you have a car accident and you try and fit the other driver into the wrong. Because I know I'm a good driver. Or, you know, whatever it is, it's trying to rearrange things so that they fit into what you already know.
yeah, to make sense of it.
Make sense of it. That's right. Yeah.
We were very protective of our orientation to life, isn't it? Like we have a particular view, particular picture of life that's safe, even if it's uncomfortable. We know how to be in the uncomfortableness and navigate it. And yeah, when those boundaries gets pushed, and as Michael says in this chapter, when the reality proves you otherwise, it's yeah, we're very defensive of it because it's safe.
And it gives us the illusion of control,
Yeah, certainty.
Yeah,
the illusion of certainty.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. What's it really stands out to me as and what a fool's errand it is to think that somehow we can control the universe to line up with our preferences and our, like, the, you know, the, it's almost like, you know, there's a, people often refer to the definition of insanity as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. To me, that, you know, this is maybe a new definition of insanity, is thinking you can control the entire universe to be the way you want it to be.
yeah. And probably more than half the things that we are pursuing to be the way we want it to be is trying to avoid that thorn or
Mhm.
thorns
Mm.
that Michael talks about.
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure.
What I found recently is, you know, since we started this project here, removing or letting go of thorns here and there and
Mm.
everywhere. And now I'm getting to the level where they're really subtle and sneaky. I don't even recognize them as their thorns to start with, you know. But when I really sink into them, I see something in there that's a thorn. It's very interesting, the whole process.
It's like when the blind spots becomes visible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful.
I've had that experience too. Like I can't tell you how many subtle little memories from all, you know, from being a little kid to, you know, my first job or my first girlfriend, or I don't know, all kinds of things that I hadn't thought about in 10, 20, 30, 40 years popping to mind and going, oh yeah, like, I had a thing pop up the other day where, um, when I was a child, I would have said I got bit by a dog. Really, the dog just kind of like mouthed my arm. Like it wasn't overly dramatic, but I was a little kid and it was a big Irish setter. And it scared the crap out of me. It was drooling like all I remember. It was like almost getting a tsunami of drool. It was
A
how
tsunami.
yeah, it was. But it was like I was remembering this, going like, where did that memory come from? And I just laughed about it, and I don't know. I'll presume it's gone, like that little thorn. Um, anyway, I've had lots of things like that in the last couple of
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
I also had a high fever for 3 days last
I
week.
know. Delirious.
You would have released a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Burned it away.
Yeah.
On page 194, Singer says, your choice is to either resist reality or go beyond the limits of your model. And for me, like the fact that he couches it in the your choice again is very hopeful for me that this is something we can choose deliberately to do, either resist reality or go beyond the limits of your model.
And I think there's something more in that choice. Some people are not going to make the choice that I'm pretty sure all of us will make. They're going to choose the other way, and that's okay too. You know,
Well, he uses the metaphor of the tiger in the cage as
yeah,
to explain exactly what you just said. Is most people will choose the safety of the cage they know is better than the unknown, the fear of the unknown.
The thing that occurs to me is the times that I myself aren't aware that there is a choice.
Mm.
Like, oh no, this is real, this is true, this is not my thinking, this is not my creation. So yeah, it's just not knowing that there is a choice, and how many of us are in the world who haven't even glimpsed that there is such a thing as a choice in this moment. So, but it's liberating to know that there is one, even though there are times we can't see it. We'll see it at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, there's when he speaks of the comfort zone, that our old arch enemy, the comfort zone,
Mm.
which nobody seems to fully be able to break out of for some reason or another. And there's something about what you're saying and what Greg was saying before, about sort of the idea of survival versus infinite. And if kind of we are, again, in the Paleolithic sense, in the actual sense of life, we are actually fully equipped to survive, let's say. It's just that the word has been transformed into something. Oh, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm surviving. It has a different meaning. I mean, the word from the original meaning, I think from the Latin, which is sopravvivere, which means to live beyond, live over and beyond. And I'm kind of thinking that, again, if we could become somehow, and I don't know whether that's through choice or through what mechanism could take us there, but if the ability, the reality is that we're built for survival, so we're built moment to moment, second by second, millisecond by millisecond, to move with time into the beyond. Like you could almost, I'm kind of thinking, we could almost say that we're actually already there, rather than wondering if we're ever going to get there. In some sense, and that to me, the sort of the word survival in that sense speaks to me of the infinite, of the beyond, of something much more expansive. And it also somehow even overrides the even effort of having to make a choice somehow.
I like what you're saying, Elaine. I feel like you leapt forward beyond everything when you're sharing that.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting in the feeling of it. It's really cool. I can't articulate it yet. Yeah, but it had a real sweetness to it.
What came up for me was this. I don't know if this is just something I've observed in a number of situations where, in the absence of a true need for survival, we'll fabricate things to struggle with, so that we can, I don't know, feel like we're struggling, like that need to survive, like in, I don't know, in historical sense, literally every day was a fight for your life. Like, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? How am I going to protect myself against being eaten by animals? Whatever. I'm going to imagine most of us don't have to worry about any of those things really, um, on a daily basis. Um, but there's this, I don't know. It seems to me like maybe there's an undertone of um, needing to be in a struggle to know that you're alive, kind of thing. So we in the absence of, I don't want to say, real or legitimate struggle, we create all kinds of struggles for ourselves in our lives that we can then overcome or wallow in, or I don't know, whatever. But a lot of it's of our own making.
That last sentence you said, Greg, a lot of us, no, a lot of it is our own making. What I was feeling, as Elaine, you were sharing, we're already in the infinite. We just most of the time pretend that we're not. Well, not purposely pretending, but yeah. So
Those mental
there's
boundaries we're creating.
yeah, and what was yeah again, like it is our own making, you know. Because previously I was thinking, oh yeah, I've got to see through this to be in the infinite. No, we're already there. It's realizing that that is the case. There's some easiness to it, like it's not somewhere to get to, like I'm already there, I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind for me is subtractive psychology.
Right.
Another example.
Yeah.
He talks about this idea of, it says, there's a reason for everything you do. If you want to see why you care so much about what you wear or what your hair is like, then just don't do it one day. And it's almost like an invitation to experiment with, things that you think you care about so much. Take a vacation from it for a day and see what happens. That'll tell you why you're doing certain things.
Yeah.
It's a cool way to have the system reveal the underlying construct. So it's like you get the craving and you sit in the craving without satiating it, and so the thread underneath, and it is uncomfortable, but if you hang in there, there is the realization that, oh, it's not infinite, it does pass. But as it passes, it pulls on that construct, and it's a very graceful way to see what's actually churning through underneath that's invisible to us. But I do find, most of the time I don't do it straight away. It takes us several goes before going, oh yeah, I should just allow this and be in the discomfort.
Yeah. And I guess for most of it, that's again easier said than done. And Michael speaks to that when he says going beyond means going beyond the borders of the cage. There should be no cage. The soul is infinite. It's free to expand everywhere. It's free to experience all of life. And this can only happen when you are willing to face reality without the mental boundaries. And that's when he says it. If you still have barriers, and you know what they are because you hit them every day. I love what he says. He's funny. You must be willing to go beyond them. So there's always comes back to that. What you were saying, Greg, as well. It's the psyche, it's the mental. If you think about it, also anything mental has actually also no form. It is just pure thought, which is kind of weird, how we can get so tied up in things that actually aren't there. Like, I understand if you've got a dog barking at you then, and Greg was talking about the Irish setter drooling and taking his arm and that kind of thing and whatever. But all the rest of it, and that's a physical thing. I mean, and that makes kind of sense to be really terrified or frightened, or when you're only a little boy or whatever. But like all the rest of it, it's almost crazy because it doesn't actually you can't. Can you touch all of that stuff? Like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
It's not physically tangible, and yet it creates us a whole pile of issues and bothers and nuisance and pain and angst. It's almost ridiculous. We must be crazy. There's 8 billion crazy souls going around.
I've been hallucinating his metaphor of the dog with the invisible fence, and see myself as that dog, and how many times like I've tried to run beyond and get come back with my tail between my legs whimpering.
Yeah.
But the again in the sense that you were just talking about, Elaine, like it's an electric fence boundary of my own making from thought.
Yeah.
And he says here, it says, the moment somebody starts behaving in a way that is outside your expectations, your mind starts talking. Your mind is telling you to fix it. And it's like this activation of the psyche. Like the closer you get to that boundary, the more times you touch it, the more activated your inner roommate becomes. Because the last thing the inner roommate wants to do is get outside the cage.
Yeah.
He gives us a clue. He says, labeling things as wrong or bad or unfair. That's the struggle to get the infinite to fit into the finite, to fit into your world, to the example you just gave, to fit behavior into what you know. It's a good clue.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
In that sense, expectation is also part of your cage, isn't it? Not the moment it's not fulfilled. Oh, the mind gets busy. It's like, I'm outside the cage.
It depends on your expectation. But then again, as I say that, I'm like, I am saying which expectations are okay and which ones aren't. When I said that, I realized that's what I was doing. Interesting.
And he says, and I don't know why, and it might not have been deliberate, and it's just me hallucinating. He says at some point, a cage by any other name is still a cage. And I'm desperately trying to compare that to Shakespeare's A Rose by Any Other Name. It wouldn't smell so sweet, but I'm sure there's something in that rhythm there that's trying to say, because the imagery there with the like, well, a cage is, it's still a cage. However, whichever way you look at it, it's a cage. But a rose, on the other hand, indeed, that is it. The perfume we're talking about of the rose is something that is totally intangible, and you might like it or not. But I'm just wondering if there's some reason that he wrote that sentence like that. It's like, it's so darned obvious, isn't it? You can't, there's no way you can talk, you can complain, you can moan, you can groan, you can say this, that, or you can argue with somebody or whatever, but you're still in your cage, whatever you're doing.
It's that invisible fence
Yeah.
from the dog example, from the dog
Yeah.
metaphor.
Yeah. And then he says straight after that, you must be willing to go beyond. Which also, bringing it back to your own potential, your own ability, your own
Sovereignty.
sovereignty. Yeah.
He says, when you truly awake spiritually, you realize you are caged. And there's a I know for me in this journey, learning about the principles and studying this book, I don't know if I would have said up until this chapter that I had a realization of being caged, but I certainly had a realization of more of the beyondness, of the infiniteness, of the potential. So I think that it's kind of a telltale sign that you're becoming more spiritually awakened when you start to realize that you're in a cage. And I know since reading this chapter too, there's areas in my life where I'm like, oh yeah, like it's almost like being blindfolded and going around feeling for the edges of your cage. It's like, oh, here's an edge right here. That's not, and then realizing, oh, that's not real. That's of my own making. Like I can go beyond that edge.
The way he talks about eventually you will realize that it cannot actually hurt you to go beyond your psychological limits. I find that for me, it's not a blanket realization. So I've got all these different blocks, if you like. Eventually I see, oh yeah, going through that's not going to hurt me, but this one it still does. Then I go through that. Oh, okay, that one too, not going to hurt me. It gets a little easier. I became, that leap of faith becomes a little bit more easier, but it's not a blanket realization of,
Yeah.
none of this is going to hurt me, but that won't. But oh yeah, all these other four does, or do. Yeah.
Some thorns are bigger and deeper than others, maybe.
Yeah. The stickiness they talk about.
Yeah.
Or they look more real.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how that's possible?
Yeah.
Even with this understanding, how we got these compartments, almost like alters, different personalities coming through.
Yeah.
Power of thought.
Yeah. Separate realities, even.
You know what just occurred to me when you said that, Elaine? Separate realities within ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Not in the way that we've sort of formally been, introduced to the idea of separate realities.
Wow.
And like those parts, like it's almost like, I relate to that, Asanka, what you said. It's like those like each individual part is in its own cage, and they're not
Right.
talking to each other, not even to get, let's say, gain the experience from that bit that maybe stepped out of the cage one day and then it's possibly stepped back in again. But like, hey, it didn't sort of go, hey, you with that thing you've got about your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever it is, do you know it's not like that? Like, we're just not talking, and you fix on that thing. You're still there,
It's
and we
comforting.
do it all ourselves. That's the most amazing thing about all of this. Like, nobody else is involved in this.
Yeah. I don't know, for some reason I'm finding a lot of comfort in the realization that there's separate realities in here, as opposed to separate realities between you and I, but it's like, oh, there is it gives room and space for more compassion and kindness. So, oh yeah,
Yeah.
there's an organization here that they all see different. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just be a little bit more open and hold space. That's nice.
Even separate realities are infinite
Yeah.
within our
Okay, now you
even
took
within
it a step
ourselves.
further. I like it.
He's going beyond.
It is going beyond. Very cool.
Yeah.
I highlighted this part where he says, "You actually use the brilliance of your mind to stay inside your cage. Sometimes you can't even fall asleep at night because you're too busy thinking about what you need to do to stay within your cage."
Mhm.
And when I read that, I thought, oh yeah, I certainly can relate to that. How many nights I've been in bed, tossing and turning, um, planning, devising, you know, uh, all the things I need to control over
Mhm.
the coming days
Yeah.
to make sure things go the way I want them to go.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny, even last night. So my kids are off at university, and even though the first semester just ended, they're starting to think about where they're going to live next year because listings are starting to be put up for uh, apartments and houses and things, even though the leases don't start till May. And him and his friends are trying to coordinate. So now you got four people plus four sets of parents all trying to talk about like what they think about this particular house and how much the rent is and are utilities included or not included, blah blah blah. And different people with different expectations about how hard or easy this process should be. Um, and uh, you know, my son is we're all kind of pushing to like, well, you need to make a decision. Like the way the real estate market works is like if you don't act quickly, you might lose the place. So it's about being decisive and so on. And then he was being more concerned about, well, his one friend, he could tell he was getting stressed out over it. So my son's um, instinct was to back off and give him some space. But everyone else in the conversation is like, no, we need to keep pushing them for a decision because we need to know. And I don't know, all these. I'm just seeing the kind of how in a dynamic of interdependence where we're not just separate entities. Like in that situation, there's a bunch of people all having to work together in the same situation. How our cages kind of overlap and intermingle and or bump into each other and creates quite a mess.
Yeah.
And in that mess with awareness, it also provides immense opportunities,
Yeah,
to see beyond those edges.
yeah,
Initially we'll bump and we'll grate and conflict and all of that, but
yeah,
when we settle, it's like, oh, it's like the universe doesn't want us to stay in a cage. It's
yeah.
always creating this context moment to, yeah.
Like yesterday, I kept coming back to the notion of the universe is a friendly place. It'll all work out. If we don't get this place, they'll
Hmm.
and at least that's been my experience too. And when you're fixated on one property or whatever, and it falls through, it doesn't work out. Very short order, another property pops up, and you're like, oh well, this one's even better or a better price or has different amenities. And it's like, thank God that other one fell through because we could have been stuck there. Yet, meanwhile, 24 hours ago, the sky was falling because we didn't get that place, and now it's like, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't all those cages bumping up against each other? Everybody, all the different entities, all the parents and the kids to some extent, going back to that element of feeling like you have some control. And what you're pointing to, Greg, is there's stuff going on that we're unaware of that's going to come into play anyway. And that knocks the element of control right out of the way. Yeah, I love the visual of the cages.
Yeah. Bumping into each other. And thinking on that as well, so thinking about the cages bumping into again, how crazy we are. Because as those cages, I'm thinking of Three Little Pigs.
Mm.
So, you know, one built his house of straw and the other one of something else, and then the other one, slightly more crafty, built it out of bricks. Well, you know, the more the cages bump into each other, you know, the sort of instinctively, if you like, what we do is start building stronger cages so the impact doesn't hurt, you know, so that nobody can get in there.
Yeah.
And of course that is, I guess, the resistance. And as we go through life, it actually builds up to a point where you've just literally, not only you're in a cage, you're in a prison more than anything else, and you cannot get out. But the what I'm hearing Michael Singer suggesting is that you've just got to step out of it, like because indeed all that heavy metal and wrought iron and all the rest of it that you've built up and maybe padded walls kind of thing, actually it's only a creation of your mind. There is no real structure there, but it looks very, very real, especially when other people's cages start bumping into yours, rather than sort of stepping out and, let's say, taking somebody else's cage and giving it a good old rattle. What are you doing rattling my cage? You know, stop doing that. You get out, that we will close ourselves into it more. I love that, the metaphor, these cages, you know, sort of grab a cage and we'll go and have a fight kind of thing. Yes.
I find these mental blocks, these cages, kind of sneaky as well, in the sense that for a cage to be solid, it relies on us not hanging around too long, being present with it. Because during the day, there's so many limiting thoughts we have. It's like, oh, I can't do that. Like, we don't even think about it. Like, I can't do it, so I'm going to go in this direction. But even in that thought, I can't do it, if I just hang around in there for a little while, that sensation, that experience of I can't do it, it can't stay still in the face of presence, in the grace of our awareness. It melts. So this cage relies on us moving through each of these cages, these thoughts fast. If we didn't, it's like you get found out, you know. It's like the flashlight need to move through fast.
Yeah.
The image that
It's
came
such-
to me there was the idea of when they train a baby elephant tied to like a little rope.
Yeah.
And so at a young age, the elephant learns that it can't escape.
Yeah.
And then, years later, it could easily tug on that rope and be free, but it doesn't do it because it's been conditioned. So to your point, like if it got present with that rope and said, well, you know what, let me actually just give this a good take and try, it would be free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that invitation to be present with your...
Same as the grasshoppers in a jar. They learn that they can only jump so high because there's the lid on the jar.
Yeah.
And then when you let them out, they won't jump so high.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to put us on the level of a grasshopper or an elephant, by the way, but there you go. That's kind of the sad truth of human beings.
Sadly, we in many ways we are no different.
Yeah, self-limiting.
Yeah.
But yet the awareness of all this is so potent. It does the heavy lifting. Kind of give new meanings to waking up, isn't it? It's becoming aware. It's
yes.
I don't know if you guys have seen the movie V is for Vendetta. No.
rings a bell.
No,
Rings a
I
bell.
don't think so. I've seen
that
it,
with,
but I don't think
It's about it's like futuristic Britain in the dystopian future, and anyway, it'll be hard to explain. So if you haven't seen it, I won't mention. But there's the character who basically the main character pretends to imprison this other person for the purpose of setting her free. Because by the time they strip away all her fear and all her pain and whatever, and then she realizes it's all an illusion, this prison that she thought she was in, and she walks in and she was mad at him at first, like, you, how could you do this to me? And he goes, well, you're free now because you don't care anymore. Like, you're not restricted by all these things. Anyway, I love the movie anyway, and now I love it even more because it's like you see a whole new level to it.
Is that the one with Vin Diesel?
No, no.
No. Okay.
It's all filmed in
Thanks.
London. I actually watched it I was there in London in my hotel room after a day of walking all over the place. And then I went back to the hotel and, oh, V for Vendetta's on. I watched it. I'm like, oh, I was just there. I was just there. I was just at Big Ben, and I was just at, Trafalgar Square and whatever. Anyway,
Cool.
a bit of a tangent. Anyway,
Seek it out.
yeah, highly recommend it.
Sweet.
Maybe I'll just read the last part of this chapter to close things out. Singer says, would you like to go beyond? Would you like to feel no edges? Imagine a comfort zone that is so expanded that it can easily fit the entire day, no matter what happens. Day unfolds, and the mind doesn't say anything. You simply interact with the day with a peaceful, fully inspired heart. If your edges happen to get hit, the mind doesn't complain. It all just passes through. This is how great beings live. When you are trained like a great athlete to immediately relax through your edges when you get hit, then it's all over. You realize that you will always be fine. Nothing can ever bother you except your edges, and now you know what to do with them. You end up loving your edges because they point your way to freedom. All you have to do is constantly relax and lean into them. Then one day, when you least expect it, you fall through into the infinite. That is what it means to go beyond. I just love the idea of, like, let's see what's going to happen today. It doesn't matter.
I love the idea of the day unfolds and the mind doesn't say anything.
Mm.
Imagine that. That must be freedom.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I don't believe that any one of at least the 5 people sitting here, because I've spoken to all of you on more occasions, but that we haven't had a glimpse of that. Maybe even just one. But I honestly don't believe that anybody sitting here hasn't had a glimpse into that. And that tells me that all of this is possible.
And the bit where he talks about when you're trained like a great athlete,
Yeah.
it conjures up in my mind having to have done a lot of hard work and training. It's not that hard in the sense that when you have glimpsed all of this, so when you have those moments of realization, that does the shifting, that does the heavy lifting, if you like. So it's, I mean, I know Michael is using a metaphor here, but for me, it's a lot easier than having to persevere and drudgery and things like that, which is really good news for all of us.
It's interesting how your interpretation of the elite athlete thing has to do with training and hard work and stuff. For me, the thing that came to mind was like God-given talent.
Oh,
like an innate ability to do it, like effortless. Not to say that elite athletes don't train and do all those kinds of things, but it's, I think for me, fundamentally, they're leaning on just their God-given talents.
And to me, go ahead.
There's another
Vanessa.
piece. He says, relax and just lean into the edges. It's no matter how much you train, you're going to hit edges. And if they know that they're okay and just lean into those edges, they'll go beyond and beyond and beyond. That's what makes them so good.
Mm.
Just
yet-
relax. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something as well, sort of also from what I said before, but from what you've just said now, Vanessa, it's the like, yes, Greg's idea, training. So that's a hell of a lot of hard work from day one until then it's years and years of training until you, and then usually most athletes get too old to be with us, so they've got to stop anyway, kind of thing. But I'm kind of thinking in this case, it's more of a, as you say, you relax and then you can see it once, that glimpse, and then you know what that feels like. And once you can see it once, then you're going to look for it more. So, and that's not an effort, because you're looking for something that is just so beautifully wonderful that it's like you want more of it. And that's kind of the training. So it becomes exponential rather than a sort of building thing. Oh, I'll do one, then I'll do another one, and then I'll have another one. Oh my goodness, how many more have I got to have? It's like, oh, I've got a glimpse of this. And then the next day you've got like a bigger glimpse of the same thing. And then the day after it's kind of double that and triple and exponential, and it's at the power of 2 and then the power of 10, and then so it goes on. But that's not effort, but it starts with that moment of relax. And you go, oh, there it is. And it starts there. But the training perhaps could be the bit that just goes up to that, which to me sounds like something like just a momentary awareness of something, let's say, beyond the cage. And which we all do, actually. It's as Jamie always says, it's in the shower, it's while you're walking, it's that moment there. And it is there. You just got to catch on to it. Oh, I can have that. And it's sort of, I want more and more. Okay? And that's infinite.
That's a good place to leave it for this
I
week.
think that's a sweet spot. Yeah.
Nice. Next week, we'll
Thanks,
get on
everyone.
to chapter 14, letting go of false solidity. And so we'll see you in a few weeks as we're going to break for Christmas and New Year's. So we'll pick this up next year.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy
Looking forward.
holidays.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you next year.